Hi and welcome to the Financial Fox. Today I will connect to South Africa to get an update on Block Commodities operation with Clinton Van Heiden, Head of Operation for Block Commodities in Africa, Prince Bobby from Poor Grow Africa, which is the partner in the Uganda blockchain pilot, and David Smillie, CEO of VIPA Holdings, who is a partner of Block and also one of the top 10 fertilizer traders in South Africa. Hi guys, how are you?
Fine, thank you. How are you doing?
Yes, yeah, all good, all good. So, Bobby, I want to start with you. How is the trip going and what are the developments on the Uganda pilot?
The trip is worthwhile so far. There's been a lot of constructive deliberations with the team at VIPA, focusing on the big picture, pre and post pilot. On the input part as well, obviously there is some work to be done, as I believe and I've seen that VIPA has some very good inputs in terms of fertilizers, though not the whole range yet to cover the needs of the Ugandan farmer, but I'm sure Mr. David will address that as we go along.
Okay. So we announced the launch of the ecosystem pilot in Uganda back in September, and obviously you have been very busy, but what I would like to understand is basically how the preparation is going and when actually you will kick off with the project.
Yeah, everyone was excited with the announcement of the pilot, and there is a lot of expectations on what is going to happen there from across the world, as we've been contacted by so many people that are following that up. The purpose of the pilot is basically to let us test out this great technology with small-scale farmers to see how it can benefit, how it can be beneficial before we dive in head first with a bigger number of people. So therefore, we are in a very important stage of planning, selecting, setting clear goals, identifying groups that we are going to work with, identifying inputs that we are going to use, crops, and also tying down off-take contracts. So it is also very important that we put the right tools in place to enable effective implementation of the project. So we are in the process of concluding the budgeting process so that we are able, if all factors remain constant, to launch the project by December.
Okay, so you've been working with Uganda smallholder farmers for many years now. Where do you see the disruptive opportunity the blockchain and cryptocurrency can bring about?
First of all, I see it in food traceability and safety, because consumers today are very careful and are interested to know the origin of their food and the contents of it. So blockchain will provide a reliable information regarding the origin of the items, of the food items, from the farm to the table. It will also help with accountability and traceability and quality of the food. At the same time, ensuring that the farmer gets his due share of the chain, because the farmer is the most important player of this agriculture chain. Then too, I also look at optimizing the supply chain. We all know that farmers are usually left at the mercy of traders and middlemen when it comes to input and trading of their commodities. So blockchain can rectify this imbalance by recording transactions in real time, hence helping the farmer to provide up-to-date demand information and participation, to also reduce duplication and faking of products, because there will be clear information of where the product source is from to the point it gets to the farmer. So that's what I believe. Then the third point maybe is better pricing and payment options. Blockchain will address the gaps in pricing and payment options, making it low cost, and fast, and secure for the farmer. because in most times farmers take weeks before they are paid for their produce when it is taken. That without mentioning the other key elements like land title registration and disbursement of subsidies, because most of the time there are subsidies, but we don't know if they get down to the farm on the ground. So I believe that blockchain will open up all those opportunities.
Okay, Bobby, this is all good and all great. I just want you to understand, is that easy to manage from your side? I mean, with all the smallholder farmers, are they going to act independently? Is your cooperative active on behalf of them? How you're going to manage and pull all these things together?
Yeah, we have to understand that we are introducing a new technology to farmers. So we have to manage the expectations. We have to know that we are going to roll out something that is new to them. So it will be a day-by-day, step-by-step adaptation by the farmers. But as far as managing it is concerned, it is very manageable.
Okay, so what we should expect next?
Of course, the next expectation is right now, after putting all things together, is the creation of awareness of the project to the owners of the project, who are the farmers, because these are the key people in the project. So it's creating of awareness, and then from that we plan to easily integrate the fast adapters without leaving out those ones who will be slow to adapt. And then we see in the period of the 1-year trial how it will go.
Okay, so Clinton, I would like now to ask you a few questions. How will small-scale farming change the life of previously marginalized rural South Africa?
Hi, Stefania. Welcome to Africa again. How will small-scale farming change the life of marginalized rural South Africa? That's a fantastic question, and that question touches two bases for me. It touches political sphere, it also touches economical sphere. But at Block Commodities, we want to have the conversation that we want to impact the people, and that is where we want to touch mostly. So 90% of the South African food table, 90% of the food that we as South Africans have on our food table comes from European farmers, commercial farmers. So there was a huge exclusion of the South African farmer in that agricultural value chain. So us as Block Commodities, the commercial farmers in South Africa represents 38,000 farmers. We have close to 60 million South Africans. Yeah. So you can see that there's been a huge exclusion in that agricultural economy. And as Block Commodities, we're saying we want to address this rural landscape by adding value to that sector of our economy, to that sector of people that has been excluded from this economy. 90% of farmers represents 38,000 farmers. So we have 60 million people. What we want to do is not to substitute, create another Zimbabwe. We want to do a supplementary economy. We don't want to do a substitution of the economy, take one farmer out and put 10,000 in. No, what we want, there's enough food requirements in the world. We have the land, we have 60 million people, we have this economy of us, this agricultural economy that we have, it's a beautiful agricultural economy. The guys have the best technology, the 400 years of know-how. All we want to do is get everybody at the table and say, can we create another economy within our agricultural space, include everybody, and not just commercial European farmers, but include small-scale African farmers, and build this economy.
On this point, I wanted to pick up on the land point that you actually mentioned. I mean, we saw that the government, particularly in South Africa, is getting quite active on that. So in fact, the President Cyril Ramaphosa claims that land reform is a necessary step in order to reduce social inequality. Do you want to comment maybe on this and explain a bit more on the importance of narrowing down the gap between white and black to own land?
Very important. I mean, so like I've just said, we've got 38,000 commercial farmers who's mainly European, producing 90% of the food basket for the country. and saying that we have the 10% contribution to the food basket comes from possibly 10 to 20 million small-scale farmers. So what we're saying is we want to integrate these two organizations, these two organisms. We want to diversify them, bring them together, share the knowledge, create funding opportunities, and start sharing this agricultural economy, which possibly is the best agricultural ecosystem or economy in Africa. And all we need to do is share it a little bit better.
Yeah, another point that I want you to touch is about female labor. We actually represent the majority of smallholder farmers in Africa, and also the importance to empower women through technology. Do you want maybe to expand on this?
For sure. So Stefania, women holds the key to the food security in Africa. 60% of all the activities in small-scale farming is represented by females. However, only 15% of females are landowners, and only 10% of females have access to funding. The yield gap between men and women in small-scale farming is 20 to 30%. So women only enjoy 50% of the potential yield in the farming sector. They only enjoy 50% of what potentially can be grown on their land. So if you look at this mathematically, it is very clear that if you look at Africa, I mean, Stefania, everybody of your viewers has ever seen an African documentary or been to Africa, to a small village. Those ladies that walk like this with the food on their heads. Have you ever seen a man doing that?
Yeah.
No. Yeah. All of them are female. So it's very clear that when we want to introduce technology into the agricultural space in small-scale farming, the natural thing to do is to include women first. Why? Because we know they're passionate about food, they're passionate about feeding their kids, their families, and we know they're dedicated and they'll get the job done. So for us, it's important that we include females and women in small-scale farming, because we know we're gonna get the job done. And the technology, including them in funding opportunities, access to information, access to crop markets and harvest markets, access to harvest contracts. It's endless, the opportunities that technology can create for women in small-scale farming.
Yeah,
Thank
indeed,
you.
Indeed. And Bobby, what is your experience with women farmers in Uganda?
Women play a very important role in agriculture and the creation of wealth. But we all know that across Africa, it's women who have always been like marginalized, sometimes not by design, but maybe it's because of the culture, the way it is. For example, women have those challenges like lack of access to land. The land is, even when a woman is married, the land is considered to belong to the husband, and she's just there as a visitor on the land. So if we are going to use the agri-tech innovations to help women, those are some of the issues, like Clinton said, that have to be addressed by governments and ourselves, including land inclusion, financial inclusion. That will help women, especially when it comes to access to information. I think blockchain will help a lot to cover that gap when it comes to access to information, because women do the farming, the men take the produce at harvest to the markets. They don't give them the right information. For example, a woman will just give the man the maize to go to the market to sell. He will come back and give any kind of information. I sold it at 1,000 shillings a kilo, yet it was 2,000. So if they have access to information, they know the market information from their gadgets, they will be able to know what to expect from their hardware.
David, I have now a question for you. VIPA was founded in 2004, if I'm not wrong, and has grown to be one of the top 10 fertilizer traders in South Africa, being at the forefront of product development in plant nutrition and soil fertility business. I mean, that is great, and you are focusing on quality and also on high standard of your fertilizer and services. Why have you chosen to partner with Block Commodities, and also what are your relationship with the smallholder farmers?
Okay, Stefania, I think the first thing is that VIPA Holdings is quite diverse, and whereas we do supply raw material to the industry, and that's normally through the industry itself, people like blenders, co-ops, and large farming enterprises. We also have a manufacturing facility of our own. But I think I'd like to place the emphasis where we fit in between the three of us sitting here right now, or the three different companies, and that is that we come in at the tail end of the process, and our whole emphasis is around implementation and actually focusing on the logistics and the quality of the products. I think those two things are tantamount to getting food out to the farmer at the end of the supply chain, because if you look at the products today, there's a lot of bogus products floating around the market, and if you look at our pay line of VIPA Holdings, it says buy quality or buy twice, and we live by that mantra, and I think the fact that we all believe. All three of us have a common thread here, and that we all believe that we're feeding people, and that if we let down the food chain somewhere in the middle, everybody's going to be affected along the line. I think as far as Blockcom is concerned, they're a technology company. They're well known throughout the African market, and although VIPA Holdings has extensive trading experience within Africa and understands all the pitfalls of some of the hostile countries that we've dealt in, the money flows, etc., we do have that experience, and we're able to accommodate the requirements of Blockcom, I think, in terms of product, but at the same time, they have the technology that is being used today and is in the forefront of agriculture going forward. I think agriculture is such an important aspect to everybody in terms of food security, and VIPA plays a big role in that, and in being able to complete the rollout of product to the farmer.
Yeah, and definitely, I mean, the access to fertilizer is one of the big problems in all the sub-Saharan Africa, because, what we see is that the interest rate is just inaccessible for smallholder farmers. So do you think that, using technologies such as blockchain, cryptocurrency lending could be a good alternative solution for smallholder farmers to access fertilizer?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, if you look at, in the old days, I remember, it used to be if a company went bankrupt, it was big news. Today, it's all about countries going bankrupt, and the access to money is a difficult thing. I mean, everybody has to look at new technologies, new ways of accessing money, and I think Blockcom is in the forefront of doing that, and it's actually quite an eye-opener as to see what it is that they're doing. And I think ultimately there'll be a lot of other people following suit in the not-too-distant future.
Okay, thank you very much, David. Back to you, Clinton. The last question. Obviously, Block is now focused on Africa, but innovation in the agri-tech sector is booming in many other developing countries. In fact, now, even in Africa, Block has been approached by different parties to run a specific project for them. So maybe can you outline your plan in terms of scalability of Block Commodity model?
Well, Ms. Stefania, so the African challenge is quite big. We're talking about millions and millions of farmers, and access to funding, access to markets, access to information. Those are big challenges for us, and those challenges can only, at the scale that we are, and the scale of the challenge, can only be breached by using technology. There's no other. I mean, what we want to create in Africa, essentially, if you can draw a picture in your brain, what we want to create in Africa is to pull all these small-scale farmers together as one digitally and create one massive farm. Because remember, commercial farming the small-scale farmer is very difficult for him to get to the scale of a commercial farmer. But what we can do through technology is to bring all these farmers together and create one massive commercial small-scale farm. I know that sounds contradictory, but create one massive commercial small-scale farm and let them all work through the technology, through the digitization of the activities. Let them all, so we create one massive farm digitally and let them all work towards one goal, they all enjoy the same benefits, the same access to funding through technology. And that's our aim, to create, it's like Uber, the biggest taxi business in the world that doesn't own one taxi. We want to create the biggest farm in the world by using technology.
Yeah, it is an ambitious plan, but you know, definitely something that is going to be game changing, particularly for a countries like Africa. So, guys, thank you very much for being with us today, and look forward to having you back on our program for more news on Block and how the project, the Uganda pilot, is developing. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Stefania.
Thank you. Thank you. This is everything from the Financial Fox. See you next time.